A tourist found by members of the criminal underworld led to a terrifying kidnapping that might have been caused by an Instagram location tag on a photo from this vacation. Bali was once said to be the safest place to travel. However, the increase of murders in the last few years have led many to believe otherwise. Interpol has actually issued many red notices for wanted suspects from Bali who have yet to be caught. Would you travel there in 2026? You are such a genuine gem. Thank you for clicking on my video. I am Brooke Makenna, and we focus on the victims over the killers every single time. If you would like to join our community, you can subscribe down below, give this video a thumbs up, and leave some nice comments down below for the victims' families, or the survivors. Before we dive in, I want to give a quick thank you to our sponsors who allow me to continue telling these stories. Today is No CD. I am so happy to talk to you about No CD for those of my listeners who may struggle with OCD. No CD helps provide specialized treatment for OCD so you can manage your symptoms and live the life that you deserve. Their licensed therapists focus on exposure and response prevention therapy, which is proven to be the most effective treatment, so you don't have to face OCD alone. Having unwanted thoughts that are completely out of character can be one of the most misunderstood signs of OCD because it's far more common than we realize. You don't have to live in the intense anxiety and the spiraling thoughts. No CD is the world's largest provider for OCD treatment that is covered by insurance for over 138 million Americans. If your unwanted thoughts are taking over, do not wait to go get help. Visit nocd.com/overkillers to book a free call with their team and start your virtual sessions. That's nocd.com/overkillers. Now let's get back to the story. So right now, Indonesian police are working with Interpol to find 6 suspects from a kidnapping and a murder in Bali. 2 months ago, a 28-year-old tourist named Igor and his 25-year-old girlfriend, Yeva Mishalova, were traveling around Bali. They were there on February 15th when Igor would be kidnapped. He was out with a friend riding motorbikes, and he was said to be the son of a wealthy businessman. Igor's girlfriend Yeva was an Instagram model. She had about 200,000 followers and she was posting about their travels. However, that night around 10 p.m., Igor was riding motorbikes with his friend Alexander Petrovsky. Now suddenly a group of men in vehicles that was described as a military style like operation approached them out of nowhere and abducted the 2 men. Now, Alexander would actually be the one to go to the police with the details of this kidnapping, as he said that he escaped. Alexander would say that when they were kidnapping them, he ended up calling home and was able to get his family to transfer money to them, so he was released, and that is when Igor was still kidnapped and taken to a different location. Now, Alexander was able to say that they were in a black Toyota as well as 2 motorcycles. So when news spread of the kidnapped men, one surviving, the public began to speculate that maybe Yeva, the Instagram girlfriend's post, was actually what gave away their location. She had shared a photo of her and Igor on Valentine's Day, the day prior, with the caption, F February 14th, love you every day. She tagged the location as Bali. Police said that while they didn't know if her sharing her location on social media led to this, they did believe that Igor was targeted. You see, Igor didn't just come from a random wealthy family. He was actually found to be the son of a Ukrainian mafia boss, Alexander Petrovsky. His father had never actually been convicted of any criminal cases and denies being called the kingpin in Ukraine. But he is believed to be connected to the underworld, allegedly. He has even won several defamation lawsuits against journalists who claim this. But Petrovsky had started this group of followers in the 1980s, extorting from companies and businesses, and he was even the target of 2 failed assassination attempts in the 90s. He became the owner of a TV station, and he ended up leaving Ukraine in 2005. He was out of the public spotlight spotlight, still believed to be handling his business until 2019 when he was seen with the former president of Ukraine. He was still believed to be the crime boss at this time, and now he was said to be running several scam call centers that were emerging everywhere, especially in Ukraine. These were basically deceiving people over the phone into handing over their financial information by impersonating employees of banks or luring them into some sort of money schemes. The scam call centers were believed to have protection from local law enforcement. They were giving part of their profits to people to alert them about potential raids. However, in 2022, while in Europe, after the assault of a taxi driver by his security team, he was officially under investigation. And then the mayor in Ukraine of Dnipro made a public statement naming Petrovsky as the leader of this influential organized crime group that involved these scam centers. He said it's time to stop pretending that these people don't exist. Petrovsky was also allegedly under investigation by German authorities for money laundering. But while Igor's father was said to be this crime boss, his friend Alexander's father was also said to be a crime boss in Ukraine. Both of their dads were theorized to be associated with these fraudulent call centers and appeared in criminal incidents previously. So it was theorized that possibly this was the motive for their kidnapping. So Indonesian police began their investigation and they began to track down the vehicle that was used in the kidnapping using CCTV footage of that area. They found that this was a rental car, and from the GPS they were able to find that the vehicle had gone to this luxury villa in Tabanan. Inside this villa, they would find blood as well as a phone and a bag that was believed to belong to Igor. Igor was not in the villa, nor was anybody else. However, forensic experts did match the blood found to Igor. There was also blood matching Igor found inside of the vehicle. But by February 19th, 4 days later, a video began circulating online. This had been shared to a Telegram channel and quickly spread. It appeared to be a chilling 3-minute ransom video. On screen was Igor himself, looking much different than his last social media post. He had visible black eyes and his face was swollen. He appeared terrified. He was heard saying, "Mom, Mom, I beg you, please help me. We stole those $10 million they're asking for. Give them back those $10 million. They have already chopped off some of my limbs. I have broken legs, and they punched my rib cage." And he lifted his arm up into the screen and showed that he had no left hand. An infection will start soon. I'm just dying. I ask you very much. This is a very serious organization. No one can find me, neither mafios, no one. I was already taken to another country. Bring me home, whatever is left of me at that moment. They need $10 million, which we stole. As soon as these $10 million are received in their accounts, they will immediately let me go back to the place where they took me. I beg you, please. Please settle. No gangsters will help you, no cops, no one. I think they have already checked this these days. Please help me. I ask you very much. I believe these people. Please believe them too. Don't communicate with anyone except these people and me. I'm just gonna die. They can give me freedom and health. I ask you very much, help me. I forgot to add, I'm getting really bad. Today is the 19th of February. Please help. In the coming days, they can send you a video already with a severed hand, God forbid. Please, I beg you. Now, this ransom video is actually believed to be filmed in the villa where police had searched and had found his blood. Investigators tried to authenticate this video circulating online, fearing that this was the kidnapped man. But 6 days later, on February 27th, would be the worst update possible in this case. Indonesian police would receive a tip regarding the Was River, approximately 18 miles from where that luxury villa was, where his blood was found. Next to the river on the beach, body parts had been located. The severed right leg, upper chest, thighs, internal organs, and severed head were all found decomposing. Forensic analysis of these body parts determined that this man had died approximately 3 days prior, so most likely around the 24th. Police stated that they were testing this against the DNA of Igor's mother to determine if it was him. However, while they waited for those results, the medical examiner in Bali told the media that they had made a partial match to the tattoos found on the body parts to Igor's tattoos. This included Roman numerals, a watch, and the Virgin Mary. At this point, the Indonesian police announced that the renter of the vehicle connected to the kidnapping had been arrested in connection with the kidnapping and suspected murder of Igor. This was a foreign national with the initials of CH. He was found to have rented vehicles using a false passport, and police believed that he was involved in a transnational criminal network, and he was the ringleader. He was picked up while trying to flee from the country. However, he was not believed to be directly involved with carrying out the kidnapping. It was believed he had planned it. Now, during the investigation, police found that there were other foreign nationals suspected to be involved, all men who were wanted for questioning. These men were named by their initials RM, BK, AS, VN, SM, and DH, as it is protocol in Indonesia not to mention the name of suspects until they are officially charged. Now, the full red notices for these men can be found online. There are 2 Russians who are 29 and 27 years old, and then 3 Ukrainians who are 34, 42, and 28 years old. They are wanted on suspicion of kidnapping, extortion, and murder. Investigators had found that 4 of the men had fled through the Bali International Airport, while 2 were said to still be in Bali or nearby. Police were working with Interpol, who have now issued the international red notice for their arrest. Some were said to be involved in the kidnapping, while others committed the abuse. Some of the suspects were believed to have multiple passports and aliases. Now, the medical examiner then gave an update on the autopsy of the body parts, stating that the body was in an advanced state of decomposition, which was hard to identify. However, based on the skull, it belonged to a Caucasian male. They had taken DNA samples from a molar tooth, a collarbone, a fragment of the thigh bone, a rib bone, a toe bone, and part of the shin bone for testing. On March 6th, Igor Komarov was identified as the dismembered body found on the beach. The police did announce this in a press conference. However, they didn't name him. They just showed a piece of paper with his name and his birth date. Now, a chairman for the Council of Countering Technological Offenses, they were connecting it back to this criminal underworld and possibly the scam centers that were popping up everywhere. Ukraine is basically a hub for these scam call centers with 30,000 different employees, often shielded by law enforcement and connected to these organized crime groups. And Igor's father was not just believed to run one, he was believed to run many. But a political scientist believed that the abduction could have been used as a tool for an information attack against Igor's father. They believed that the real kidnapping had been artificially covered with manipulative details to link to the father and make him look bad. The political scientist said that it was a typical mechanism of informed campaigns. So now not only did we have the criminal underworld coming into this, but possibly politics as well, which are often said to be connected. But Indonesian police then announced that they determined Igor's kidnapping was a carefully planned crime. It was in advance and was carried out by a group with clear rules. With their investigation, they found that these suspects had been following Igor around for about a month before the kidnapping. Cameras captured several of these men gathering information near the villa where Igor lived. They used different vehicles, and investigators described their action as a stakeout. They took turns watching the victims' movements. Then, a week prior to the kidnapping, they rented a car using the foreign passports. And after the kidnapping, they took Igor to several different villas, and they asked for this hefty $10 million ransom. It was believed that this ransom was never given, and it's unknown why or how the negotiation actually occurred. And like I said, while Indonesia is said to have some of the lowest crime rates in the world, there have been more recent attacks. In fact, on March 23rd of 2026, a month after Igor's abduction, a tourist named Rene Pau was murdered. Now, he was a 49-year-old Dutch tourist who was visiting Bali with his girlfriend. They were outside of their villa they were living at. They were just returning from walking their dogs when they were approached by two men on a motorbike and attacked. These men were said to be armed with large samurai-style swords and knives. Rene attempted to protect himself and his girlfriend and was repeatedly slashed in the head, neck, shoulders, arms, and legs. His girlfriend witnessed the attack, and she was chased by one of these men as she tried to flee, who was still holding the blood-covered weapon. She managed to hide until help came. Rene was rushed to the hospital, but he lost consciousness and he never regained it. He suffered severe blood loss and was pronounced dead soon after. Witnesses of this murder claim that they had heard screaming. They saw two individuals flee on a motorbike. One was wearing a black and green jacket, similar to those used by delivery drivers there, and the other was wearing just a normal orange shirt. Investigators would find that it was likely not a robbery, as none of the couple's belongings were stolen. They never went into the actual villa. But there were rumors when this occurred in the Dutch media that Rene was possibly linked to drug offenses in the underworld, where he came from, in the Netherlands, but that was never confirmed. It was known that Rene lived in Bali for about a year and owned more than one undisclosed business in the area. So authorities in their investigation found who they believed to be suspects. These were two Brazilian men who witnesses claimed came to a hotel and checked out soon after the murder. This hotel owner said that they stayed for $25 a night at the hotel in Kuta on March 15th is when they started, a week before the attack. They were said to rarely leave their room. They packed light. They had one backpack each, and they booked for another week. However, on the 24th, which was the morning after Rene's murder, they checked out. One of the men showed the hotel owner that his visa had just gotten done, and so they were going to leave. However, the hotel owner was stating that these two men didn't look suspicious or worried. They only spoke Portuguese, and so they had limited conversations with the staff. But they were friendly and they were kind. Rene's girlfriend, who witnessed the entire thing, stated that they had actually seen the two men on their walk earlier that night and thought nothing of them. But investigators requested Interpol red notices for the Brazilian men suspected to be connected to his murder. They believe the death to be premeditated or a hit, potentially the result of involvement with known or unknown criminal personnel. A forensic scientist who worked with Rene's body stated that the island had seen a rise in violent incidents in the last months, and this is coming from someone who works with the bodies. In fact, there was a murder victim every month the first 6 months of 2025. So that was just a year prior to when this was happening. With this increase in crimes, the police spokesperson told the public that the international crime gangs were not setting up in Bali as some were speculating, but many weren't sure that they should believe them. It's been seen that many of these murders are believed to be what is fly-in, fly-out missions, taking advantage of Bali's easy entry requirements and blending in with the millions of tourists in order to commit these crimes. In fact, in June of 2025, so just 9 months prior to Renee's murder, another murder of a tourist occurred in front of his loved ones. 32-year-old Australian Zivian Radmanovic, a father of 6, was staying in a Bali villa with his wife Jasmine at the Villa Casa Santista to celebrate her 30th birthday. They had only been there for 2 days. They were actually there with Jasmine's sister and her sister's boyfriend, but that night their villa would be broken into and Zivian would be shot to death in the villa while his wife Jasmine hid under the covers. In another room of the same villa, Jasmine's sister's boyfriend was also shot in the leg and beaten, but he survived. This survivor was 34-year-old Australian Sanar Ghanem, and the girls would eventually run to get help.
This video recorded and uploaded to social media by someone claiming to be a neighbour.
A little bit scary for sure.
During an autopsy, Zavin was found to have been shot 3 times and had blunt force trauma to the head.
Police have recovered 19 bullet casings so far, but they are still working to determine how many were fired from each gun.
This case needs to be solved. Find the killer, as this situation makes us feel unsafe.
They're not concerned about witnesses, the fact that she's remained alive, but you can imagine situations such as this, highly volatile. They run in, they're highly octaned with the adrenaline and they're rushing out. In fact, they've had access to a firearm. It appears that they're well connected. They have information of where they were living in their villa. So they've certainly done their homework.
This is not the type of place that you just stumble across unless you know what or who you're looking for. And those are questions that Balinese police are now asking themselves as well. Who were the 2 masked gunmen who fled on motorcycles in the middle of the night who had Australian accents? Have they left Bali or even fled Indonesia already? Or are they simply hiding in plain sight among the tens of thousands of other Aussies who pack this holiday island?
The case itself is of a high priority and receives special attention from the police force.
A manhunt then ensued for the killers, and shortly after, one Australian man named Darcy Jensen was arrested trying to flee at the airport. Then 2 other Australian men, Mulvit Koskin and Pei Tapu, were arrested in Singapore and Cambodia with the help of Interpol. These men consisted of a plumber, a landscaper, and a carpenter. It was believed that the man arrested in the airport was the getaway driver, with the other 2 doing the killing before dumping their handguns in a river.
These are the men Indonesian police say came to their country thinking they could get away with murder. Among the evidence are several vehicles, including these scooters, which were allegedly used to flee the villa in Mengu before the gunmen jumped into this Toyota, dumping that in Tabanan and swapping into this Suzuki, which was allegedly driven all the way to the coast, onto a ferry, and then all the way to Jakarta.
The article that we've used against them has the maximum sentence, the death penalty.
Now, the survivor, who had also been shot, Sanar, was found to have been a former kickboxer. He had been living in Bali for about a year, but he did have certain underworld associates from Australia. He had previously been in a relationship with the stepdaughter of the deceased underworld boss, Carl Williams. He would speak to Bali police from a secure location and said that he couldn't identify his attackers, he never saw their faces, and the women couldn't identify them either.
Good evening. There are fears tonight the shooting of 2 Melbourne men in Bali may have been a gang-style hit.
32-year-old Sanar Ghanem was shot in the buttock and the shin. He remains in this Kuta hospital. His former partner and mother of his child is Danielle Stevens, daughter of Roberta Williams, stepdaughter of murdered crime boss Carl Williams. Ghanem himself served time in 2015 after he was linked to a non-fatal Melbourne shooting.
So survivor Sanar was actually charged with attempted murder with his girlfriend Danielle Stevens. Police told the court that they were involved in this verbal disagreement and they met with this man who agreed to meet with them, and then a shooting occurred. The victim had at least 22 shotgun pellets lodged in his head and body that would be there for the rest of his life. Police said he was extremely emotionally traumatized and was now in hiding. However, by October 2015, the charges against Sanar's girlfriend Danielle were dropped, he was actually pleading guilty to reckless conduct endangering life, and so he was going to be sentenced, and he ended up missing his child's birth because he was in jail. But it turned out that this victim of Sanar with the shooting would end up being jailed for 4 years after pleading guilty to SA.
Sanar Ghanem remains in hospital here, and so far Mike hasn't spoken to investigators, but we've just now learnt that police are working on a theory that he wasn't the main target of this attack because he was shot in the leg, unlike his friend Zafan Radimic, who was shot twice in the left side of his chest. There's about a dozen officers still stationed outside of the hospital here because Mr. Ghanem's safety still very much in question.
He stated that that night when the shootings occurred, he had actually protected himself by tucking his head into his legs in a kickboxing stance. And after they shot him and he screamed, that is when they fled. But these 3 suspects in custody then began to talk to investigators and claim that they were following orders of an unnamed boss in Australia to scare or bash a different man staying at the same villa who needed to pay back debt. They were talking about Zivian not actually being their target. He was just the unintended casualty of a botched mission. They claimed that they were getting paid by a man that they would not identify. They could, but they wouldn't. So by the time of Renee's murder, where he was murdered in the street at a villa, Zivian's killers were going to trial. And they would testify that they had been offered money to travel to Bali to frighten Sanar, the survivor who needed to repay a debt. They said that they received all of their instructions from a man named Mr. X, but they feared for their safety if they identified him. All the suspects, though, were found to have no prior criminal record and no connections to the underworld besides this incident. Police alleged that the getaway driver was the one who organized the hit. Other 2 broke into the villa with a sledgehammer and then began shooting. One of the men admitted to shooting Zavin, but said that he thought that he was Sanar. Both of the gunmen stated that they did not intend to kill anyone, and the getaway driver said that he didn't even know about a murder until he was arrested. Now, at this time, it was uncovered that after Sanar survived Bali, his partner's cosmetic business back in Australia had been firebombed, as though they were still trying to get his attention and make sure that he was going to repay his debt. But all 3 of these men would go to trial and were found guilty of premeditated murder, attempted premeditated murder, and illegal possession and use of firearms. The getaway driver was sentenced to 12 years and the other 2 gunmen were sentenced to 16. But this fell short of what the prosecutors had requested because the maximum penalty for premeditated murder in Indonesia can be death. But the judge stated they are still young and have the chance to improve themselves in the future. Punishment is not intended as revenge nor to degrade their dignity, but as a preventative measure so similar acts do not occur again. However, these men were 27, 24, and 22 years old. It's not like they were teenagers. And Jasmine, Zivian's wife, the victim's wife, stated that the Indonesian justice system didn't really care. And the family lawyer stated, it's a message globally to criminals, hey, come to Bali. So what do you believe? Are all of these sort of connected to criminal undergrounds? Are these just different people trying to do their dirty work in a place where they can hide easily? Do you think Igor's ransom video is really him and it was legit and he begged for his family to give $10 million? Did they really steal that money? Did he just outright refuse to give them any money? Did they not wait? Were they going to kill Igor anyway? Was he already deceased by the time they even released that video? This man, a grown man begging for his mom and for his life and saying that he will do anything in the world if they will pay the ransom, because for him to be saying, promise I'll pay you back, when he is sitting there, his hand chopped off and he is bruised and battered. I can't imagine how his girlfriend feels. You know, I think a lot of people saw the location tags and she did have thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers. I think it seems like these people knew exactly where Igor was going to be, possibly Igor and Alexander, or maybe they did see it on her Instagram when she first posted it and then headed there. but she wasn't posting exact locations. And I just hope that she does not blame herself too much, but I do think that it is a good reminder of social media safety, and you should never be posting where you are while you are still there. I make it a rule that on any sort of vacations, even a day out, it may seem like all of your content is a few days late, but that is worth it for your safety, and it doesn't need to be posted immediately. Please use this as your reminder to wait. Post when you are traveling back home and are nowhere near that location that you were going to tag. It's too easy these days to find people and to know what everyone is doing, where they are going, where they're going to be, and it's just not worth it. So what do you think? Is Bali becoming somewhere that we should fear traveling to? I just don't know. It seems like it is ramping up. And with a medical examiner saying, yeah, there are more murders and I'm getting one murder every single month, and that's unusual to them, it does make you wonder why this is occurring. Do you believe we will ever know why Igor was really kidnapped, or if the ransom ever made it his way? It seems like his father is one who does not like to talk out about his family and who also does not like being talked about. So I'm not sure we will ever hear any sort of confirmation of anything from him. I know that the summer season is coming up and we are all traveling and going and doing fun things, but please just remember to be aware of your surroundings, stay safe, watch out for people that you have seen over and over again while you are exploring, and just make sure that you are being as safe as possible. And I know you watching this, you are probably just as paranoid as I am when it comes to your safety, but it's really important when we're traveling. It's supposed to be a fun time. We want to be able to let our guards down, but unfortunately in this world, we just cannot fully do that. Thank you for listening. Do not forget to speak up. Your voice is powerful enough, and I love you to absolute pieces. Okay. Bye.